Reading from The Way of Unknowing, John Maine. We're in lovely Cleveland. About eternal youth. One of the myths that is most deeply rooted in human psyche is the myth of eternal youth. In our society, though, one of the greatest fears and sources of sadness among people is the fear of aging and declining physical powers. The sadness arises because the aging process leads us to believe that the dream of eternal youth is an illusion. Instead of the certainty that there exists a spring of eternal youth always replenishing us with freshness and vigor, we are forced to accept the conclusion that we have only a very limited store of energy that quickly reaches its peak and then sets into a period of long decline. As we meditate, we discover that the myth of eternal youth contains and expresses a profound truth about the human condition. What we all need, whatever our age, is the wisdom to discover the path to this energy of eternal youth. The spring that the myth describes is hidden deep in the thick forest, and the journey through the forest is full of difficulties and ordeals, but the journey symbolizes our internal journey, an internal process of reality, as we all sadly discover. If we search for the spring of eternal youth in externals alone, we will unearth only the disappointment of mortality. But if we search within, embracing the discipline and rigor of the journey, we find far more quickly than we might imagine that the spring that Jesus speaks of does exist. The spring of living water welling up of internal life within us is most certainly there for all of us to approach and for all of us to drink deeply from if we are making this internal journey to the spring within us. Then as we grow older, we do become more childlike. From time to time we meet older people who are radiant, and with all the simplicity of children. They possess spontaneity, openness, freedom, freshness, along with the serenity and wisdom of experience. It is this combination of innocence and experience that we call maturity, Christian maturity. One of the characteristics of such maturity is that the person possessing it can be reached, can be touched. The child and the wise man or woman are both reachable, touchable. The child possesses this innocence naturally. Most of us unfortunately lose it because we have been hurt or disappointed, and because we so feel that we have been betrayed that it seems there is no chance of risking ourselves again to the free-flowing communication arising from such innocence. We feel we would be mistreated or misunderstood. As a result, we become not wise but cynical. It is not often a sought-after cynicism, nor even a voluntary cynicism, but an orientation that we see rising more and more strongly within us, and often we see its approach fearfully instead of being reachable and reached by others in deepening sensitivity. We find ourselves becoming hardened, we become callous where we have been wounded, and when we build up defenses around ourselves to protect our woundedness, our vulnerability, we often somewhere in the stage that we start to meditate. Some more fortunate people might start to meditate while still in the stage of innocence, but most begin with the sense of having lost something that they must recover. Often we have an urgent sense that our essential survival depends on our finding our way back to that innocence. The marvel of the journey within, however, is that we recover something much greater than what was lost. The wonder of Christian message, its vision of the journey, is its proclamation that we recover not just our own lost innocence, but the innocence of Christ. Our new innocence is what He recovered for all mankind through the cross, through the resurrection. The path towards the spring of eternal life may be demanding, but on the way we follow the stream. that flows directly from the stream. And so, even on the journey itself, we are given all the refreshment and all the guidance we need. Meditation is our way onto the path. The Spirit is the stream flowing within our hearts. The mantra is the implement that clears the way through the impenetrable forest. We must simplify. Staying on the journey, we must be faithful to the recitation of the mantra. We must never settle for half clarity, for half enlightenment. We must never settle for half clarity, for half enlightenment. Our call is to come into the full light of Christ, and it is the call given to each of us to grow to that maturity and full stature, which is nothing less than the full immortal life of Christ. So shall we all at last attain to the unity inherent in our faith and our knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, measured by nothing less than the full stature of Christ. Ephesians 4:14. We were reading from John Maine, Eternal Youth. Eternal Youth. The way of unknowing. Unknowing. That way you can get to know Cleveland. In Cleveland, readings of the unknown Way of Unknowing in Cleveland.